Hello everyone, I've crawled out of my hole to bring you another video, and I have another video in the works that I started about a month ago. Welcome to my channel, the most inconsistent YouTuber in the world. I also got some news, namely, my editor here at J-Man and one of my other good friends has started a shared YouTube channel called Ladsverse. So if gaming content, let's plays and all that is your thing, go and check it out. But without further ado, let's talk about horror games. The first horror game, namely the first 3D survival horror game, was the original Alone in the Dark, released in 1992 for the PC. But I would not exactly consider it a pixel horror game, as Alone in the Dark used actual polygonal shapes to create these characters and world. But way back before 1992, before polygons existed, there was sprites and pixels. Games such as Doom was in kinda 3D, still being very much pixelated. But what about pixelated horror games then? Well, you see, in recent times, developers transformed the pixel art style, quote unquote, which back then existed due to technological limitations, into an actual aesthetic, and then began combining different concepts with the specific pixel art style, such as 3D pixel art FPS games, action games, adventure games, so on and so forth. More and more developers, specifically indie developers, have started bringing back that kind of retro-ish pixel art stylized games with very specific and unique aesthetics, combined with unique concepts, and of course, that includes pixel horror games. When talking specifically about pixel horror games, most people would instantly think back to I'm Scared or the like, but whilst I'm Scared and a few others most definitely have popularized the pixelated horror games genre, there is hundreds upon thousands of them, each one more innovative and unique than the last one, like the Last Door series, Deep Sleep series, Midnight Scenes, so on and so forth. The list goes on, and on itch.io and GameJolt, they have a massive library of specifically pixelated horror games. At this point in existence, it has become a genre of games in itself, and I very much welcome it. This wave of indie horror games very much appeals to people. It has a certain atmosphere or feeling that no other game quite gets right, which is what makes several of them completely perfect for videos, streaming, and what have you, which again creates a cycle of people promoting those games with content, and then developers of those games making other games. It's a literal ecosystem. As thus, we will forever have an influx of mountains upon mountains of indie pixel horror games to choose from and play. When it comes down to pixel horror games specifically, I think I like them more than I like horror games like Amnesia, Outlast, or the like. Pixel horror games, in my opinion, are some of the best horror games I've ever played in my life. Let me explain why. In a proper 3D, proper high quality setting in a game, much like the Resident Evil remakes, it's not exactly difficult to make scares, I don't think. Let me explain. Whilst the scares are effective, for the most part they're quite predictable. Now, I'm not saying Resident Evil remakes are bad horror games or anything. It's just that oftentimes you see the scares coming before they come. The reason for that is that when you're in a 3D setting with HD textures and all that, the beautiful detail and all of it adds, but when it comes to scaring the player, there's only so many things you can do. You can have a monster pop up somewhere, you can have creepy sound effects, or escalating violin, or have something creepy and eerie happen, or put the player in a disadvantageous situation where they have to survive, so on and so forth. And they are the main staples of horror games, especially ones in the D3 world. But now when it comes to horror games with a pixel art style, most of the time it's not in 3D, so In my opinion, for these games to enlist the type of response from the player that normal horror games do, you actually have to try and innovate a fair bit. Because surely, pixel graphics can possibly be scary, right? This is what I genuinely love about pixel horror games. They're often forced to innovate, often using the same concepts as normal horror games, but having to innovate the process of how the scares are delivered to the player. Oftentimes the result is an incredibly amazing horror game. It does not have to make you scream or shout, just make you feel uncomfortable, eerie. That's the main thing a horror game should always do, I feel like. I don't think hearing a loud violin screech that just happens to make you jump is exactly quote-unquote horror. It's just a reaction. However, I feel emotions, feelings, such as that kind of eeriness, uncomfort, unsureness, the creepy feeling that like something's crawling on your skin. That's where horror is. That's what a horror game should strive to make the player feel. And these games, for the most part, they do. Now, I've already referenced I'm Scared, The Last Door and the Deep Sleep series in the very beginning of this video, but there is a reason why I reference those specific games, those specific series. All three of them give the player a feeling of unease, a feeling of goosebumps, if you will. And all three of them are completely different. I'm Scared is a 3D pixel game that nails the uneasy atmosphere. The Last Door is a point-and-click adventure game that gives the player a mystery, uneasy feeling, and a lot of atmosphere. Like, there's a lot of atmosphere in that game. Like, God bless that game. I can make a video on it. But and then there is the Deep Sleep. The Deep Sleep series is completely different compared to the others do. Namely, it's not your conventional horror game in a sense, as it's more of a puzzle game. And there are no jump scares, really, or hardcore attempts at making the player jump, but instead it gives a compelling puzzle for the player, and then at the same time throws the player into a world soaked with atmosphere. You might have noticed that I've mentioned atmosphere several times during this video. I also talked about its importance for a moment, but I can't emphasize it enough. How truly crucial and important atmosphere is for horror as a whole, especially for pixel horror games, as without atmosphere, without unease, without uncomfort, without the feelings that it can give the player, you just have sprites and nothing else. That won't get you, that won't get the game very far, not as a horror game at least. I feel as if I did not bring this up, someone in the comments would go, but what about RPG Maker horror games? Well, so I'm bringing them up here. RPG Maker horror games use sprites and are very much pixelated. RPG Maker horror games are in fact pixel horror games, and there are thousands to choose from, but only a few of them do the concept of horror right. When it comes to RPG horror games, the best ones aim for creepiness and atmosphere. And oftentimes, when you mention RPG Maker horror games, quite a few people will instantly think of games like Abe, the Strange Men series, such as The Crooked Man, and others in the series, games such as Misao, Mad Father, The Witch's House. But there are also lesser known gems, such as Dead Dreams, Tout, so on and so forth. These are all amazing RPG Maker horror games, and I recommend them to anyone who wants to get goosebumps and suck up that eerie atmosphere. It's genuinely annoying when a game has this overly reliance on jump scares. Jump scares don't make games scary. It just annoys people. Well, maybe some people like the adrenaline they get from having a loud violin screech make them jump into the air, or have a flashing image in front of their eyeballs every 5 minutes. But that's not really horror, that's not really scary. That's just the reaction that your body has, your mind has to what's happening. True horror makes you feel creepy. It makes you feel a certain way. It pulls you out of your comfort zone. It makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes you look behind your back if there's something there. It makes you question things. It creates this kind of eeriness, this kind of genuinely uncomfortable feeling. That's what horror is supposed to do, not make you jump every 5 minutes. Some people have this really wrong comprehension that it's scary if it elicits a reaction of you that is jumping up in the air and shouting. No. I can point a gun at you and you will fucking jump. It's the same thing. It's not really horror. I love horror games that have atmosphere. And this is why I love RPG Maker horror games and pixel horror games. Because oftentimes, again, they're forced into a position where for the most part, they can't rely on jump scares. They have to do more. They have to innovate more. They have to just go a little bit further. Now, of course, you can make the argument that you can technically just have a sprite appear in front of your screen every 5 minutes and just as loud sound effects, but like, no one's gonna care about those games. That's not scary, that's just annoying. Just fucking stop it. When it comes to like actually good RPG horror Maker games such as Abe and The Crooked Man, they don't really use jump scares. They just create an amazing atmosphere, make you feel uncomfortable, make you think or feel this like these important things that some of these other games what they don't do. Point being, atmosphere rules, eeriness is epic, and pixel horror games are absolutely cool. And games like Outlast kinda suck. The end. Now, this video is again my opinion, and you're very much free to disagree with me and engage with me in discourse. I do read every single comment I get, and I do respond if I can. And I'm not opposed to discussions or debates. And now this is a bit of a lighter and shorter video, and hopefully y'all will forgive me for neglecting to upload in a while. Hopefully in a few days I'll have another video to throw at you, all fine lads. Now, when I said Outlast sucks, I kind of meant it because Outlast is just technically a running simulator where you just kind of, you hide in a closet, get out of the closet, then you go back into the closet, and you hope the game progresses whilst you're running in a closet and out of a closet. It's a walking simulator with a closet. Anyhow, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you want to see more content from me, don't forget to subscribe. Before we end, huge massive thanks to my patrons.